and you be Alpha and Omega, yes. Lord and Savior. You're welcome, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's in time for another choir drama series, and I hope you are ready. Please try and wake up and call up every choir member you know around you and tell them it's time. Please, let's call our friends, let's call all our loved ones, everyone, music lover, music group, MDs, leaders, wherever you are. Please, let's begin to bring them to join us. Yes, it's going to be a wonderful, exciting, powerful time today. It's going to be a time of learning, a time we are going to really, dig deep. And I know that by the end of today's series, we would have gotten a lot of information, a lot of impactation, a lot of wisdom to help us, to equip us. And that's all the motive and that's the objective of this series that we have been running for some months now. It's been a lead in our hearts to do this, and this is for the kingdom. And I believe that by the grace of God, the objective of this will be achieved. So without wasting much time, I'm just waiting for one or two. I can see you, Johnny Sog. Yes, I can see you, Ibilola Olabi. Thank you. Yes, our guest already in the house. Yes. I'm just 2 more minutes for everyone to join us. Please, let's remind our friends, our other choir members, our group, everybody around. Everybody must be here. We must not miss today. We cannot afford to miss it. I knew I got follow to line. Yes. Today we are going to be talking about conflict management. I hope you can hear me. I want to have feedback from you. Can you hear me and can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you see me? If you can hear me, please holler back at me so I know that we are good to go. Yes. Please holler back at me. No, good to go. Okay. I can see you. Please, can you hear me and can you see me? I want to know that we are together indeed so that we won't miss anyone. We will not miss out on anything. I will not miss out on anyone. Yes. Okay. So, yes, you can see me. So, we are good to go. So, today we are going to be talking about conflict management. And this is something that this is a very sensitive topic, especially in our world as choristers, as choir members, as music lovers, as music leaders, as teams, as music team. This is a very sensitive topic, and the normal reaction to conflicts is to ignore and to pretend as if it doesn't exist, and to pretend like it's not, and to spiritualize. Let me use the word, and to spiritualize it. So it's not properly dealt with, and failure to deal with conflict in the proper way can lead or has even led to so many ripple effects which has been disastrous at the long run. So to manage conflict management is very key. And that is why we are discussing about it. That's why we are talking about it tonight. It's not just about dismissing it or just giving an excuse for it and just sweeping it under the carpet. A lot of choristers, a lot of choir groups and choirs, great choirs have resulted in throwing things under the carpet in their own way of resolving it, and it has backfired at the long run. And that is why it's very paramount that we are discussing about this today. So before I bring in our guests, I want us to understand that we are not going to be dwelling on conflict, but we are going to be dwelling on conflict management. One thing is that conflict is bound to happen. Conflict is bound to happen. Even siblings, there are conflicts. So it's not about it. The issue here is not will there be conflict. There will be conflict, because these are choir groups are made up of different people from different background, different family, different exposures, different values. So coming together under this is going to be there's going to be conflict. Choir is like an organization, that is an organized nation, different people, different nations. So I call choir groups, choir teams as like a country inside a country. The church is the bigger picture, but the choir is a church in itself. So they are bound to become. So how do we manage this conflict effectively? How do we make sure that this conflict is being curtailed, is being managed in the best possible way, and at the end of the day we don't get into a mess like we have seen in some cases. So with my way of introduction, I would say we have different kind of conflict of interest, conflict of values, relationship conflict, and the likes of them. And this has been a issue. This has been a issue that have gone a long way in disrupting the smooth flow of the choir process. So without wasting much time, I want you to get your questions ready. I want you to get your writing pad ready, because we are all going to learn. I am going to learn. You are going to learn. We all are going to be sharing. We are going to be learning. So feel free to be part of this discussion and part of this chat. So with Jesus' joy, I'm bringing in our guest. So I want you to join me in welcoming him. His name is Olaolu Aiyelegbe. He's a music minister, is a minstrel, a worship leader, a recording artist. He has several singles to his credit, and they have been blessing lives across the globe. He's presently the music director of Jesus House, Baltimore, USA. So he's a father, he's a husband, he's a son, and I know that it's going to be a blessing to us. So please jam those ends together as I bring him in a bit. Okay. Okay. He's here. Can we say, oh, Tara, can you join your hands together? Come, Minister Olaolu. Oh, what a pleasure having you, man of God. A pleasure having you, and an honor having you in our midst today. Thank you for
great to be here.
Thank you for being there. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything. And I know that it's going to be an amazing time today. So I have introduced you to our people, and I'm sure you can see his face. Let's give him a Jesus welcome. Yeah, you can see the love. You're already loving me already. You're already loving me already.
Okay, yes. Now you're embarrassing me.
No, you're not embarrassed, man of God. Oh, okay. So I said earlier that we want to talk about something as sensitive as this, and everybody who has been in the choir at one point or the other understands the sensitivity of conflict management, and it's not something that should be treated with levity. This is something that we need to really have an understanding about, so that things can be put in perspective. most of the time cases that happens to choir groups and all that is not that is devil. I think we like put the whole cap on the devil, it's the devil, you know, and all that. But most of the time it could be it's about the way and manner conflict is being resolved. And so it's been resolved in in diverse ways, and it has had a backfiring effect. So I want to, with your wealth of experience, because I know being the music director of one of renowned choirs in the US, it's a big shoe, and I know that you have seen all sorts. There's no other person that can really like talk about these things better than you are, because you have been able to, you have been in the capacity of leadership here in Nigeria before you traveled, so you have seen both sides, and you can give an holistic view of really this topic we are talking about. You understand what I'm saying? So I wanted to just jump at it, and let's start with what are the causes of this conflict in the first place, because we need to understand the causes of this conflict before we now know, okay, how do we now manage this conflict? Because choir is choir everywhere. In China, it's the same thing. In Lagos, it's in Abule-Odu, it's the same. US, Chicago is the same thing. So over to you, man of God. We are listening.
You've said a whole lot, and probably before we go into the topic for today, I would just like to say thank you for bringing me on board, and for all your listeners and all the guests on here on this platform. I just want you to know that let me say, Pastor Taiwo, she used to be my momo in the choir. When we're in Nigeria, we called her momo. Well, then I think the leader used to be Popo then, but we had like Papa. But now we had her as our leader, and so we called her Momo. And I remember the first time you auditioned me to join the choir. It was very dramatic. And I think you shared with me what happened afterwards, but it's really been great working with you over there at LVCU, and seeing the great work you do with your music, and you know, you're a lover of God and all the things you've been doing. I really appreciate you, and thank you again for bringing me on board. So talking about the topic for today, conflict, like you said, it's a broad topic, and it's a very, very sensitive topic as well. And there is nobody, including leaders of choirs, or I mean, choir members, or anywhere you find yourself, there will always be that factor of conflict being addressed in one capacity or the other. But from my experience so far, I think I can categorize it into a few things. The first thing I'll say is that conflict usually arises because of perspective, right? And usually there is no right or wrong route to go. But it's just because we all have different perspectives. I've heard someone use this phrase of, when someone says, I see this cup half empty, or I see it half full. They're actually talking about the same thing, but it's just because of the way they see it, because of the way they perceive that situation. And that really drives, you know, that conflict factor between them. Now that they see things differently, I think the major factor that comes into play is the personality aspect of it. Some of us have very strong personality. Some of us have, well, permissive perspective. And it's usually at that point that we now talk about, how do we manage this in such a way that relationships are not broken, in such a way that everybody comes out of that situation, you know, in peace and in agreement that, okay, so this is what we both are saying, or this is what we both are saying. And it even cuts across marriage as well. You know, the husband says this, differently, the wife sees it differently. But it's if both parties will come to a resolution that, oh, we're in this because we love God and we want to serve God, we want to sing to our God, and it's not about self, it's not about who we are, or someone is after me or someone is trying to get me. If we can just clear our mind from um, that space, I think it will really, really help us a lot. And I know I've said a whole lot about perspective, but I still have some other things that I don't know if you have anything to respond to that.
Yeah. Perspective, which is key. I saw somebody already writing it. Perspective, knowing that we all have different way of viewing things, and the way maybe somebody from a particular tribe or from a particular continent might view things might be different. So, and the bottom line of it is that we all have this, we should all have the same, the same aim and objective at the end of the day, but we may have different way of achieving it. But in that space of having different way, if it's not properly managed, then we have conflicts, and becomes a mess, and you understand all that. Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned something very key. You said that sometimes many of us don't come from the same place, and that actually takes me to the next point. I'm talking about culture. My choir is very diverse. We have different people from different nationalities, different countries, and even though my choir is not a Nigerian kind of labeled choir. We have, the bulk of the people from Nigeria, and we have people from, let's say, Rwanda, or Kenya, Liberia, from the eastern part of Africa and some other nationalities. And most times when maybe we're discussing or we're, planning for something, unconsciously things could be tending towards the Nigerian way. Yeah, to the point that those other people might be feeling left out. And honestly, it could be very, very unconscious, but they could feel like, okay, so why am I here? And okay, let me give an example. I've dealt with a situation where I realized this guy was always, sitting back, and he wouldn't, and he used to be, forthright, he used to be like very active, but for some time he was just pulling back, and I thought maybe he was just being tardy, he just didn't want to do his work. And that's one thing that we leaders need to correct. Most times when people are not doing what they've been doing, it could just be because of something. I don't think someone will be a part of a choir and just decide one day that I don't want to be responsible, or I want to be irresponsible, right? So we have a responsibility to kind of dig deep into what exactly the situation is. And I gave him a call. I was like, hey, what's up, bro? How you doing? I was just checking on you. What's going on? And because I called him, that shock factor of, oh, why did he call me? He was able to open up to me on a whole lot of things. Sometimes, he said sometimes when he walks into the room, maybe when people are talking and maybe they just don't say anything anymore. And he felt like maybe they were talking about him. So I had to help to correct that notion that it's possible that maybe that conversation ended at the time you were walking in. I'm not sure people will actually be, so these are some of the little things that we leaders need to be paying attention to. Unfortunately for us, we have blind spots. There are some things that we don't see, that we don't know, and it's, at the end of the day, hurts us. I don't want to keep talking, but let's go.
We are really actually we are enjoying everything you're saying, and we are really getting into exactly what you're saying. Okay, now the example you shared is leading me to the next question I'm about to ask you. How do we now manage or handle conflict between two or more choir members as a leader? How have you been able to do that? Because we see that this internal conflict between two or more parties, I don't know about the dynamics over there, but here in Nigeria, we seem to have more women in choir than the males. So, a place where we have a lot of women, my goodness, there will be conflict. You know how we are, how women should be. So, how do you handle it? Because it's a big headache for most music directors. So, I want you to shed more light. How do you handle without being biased or seen as being biased? How do you manage the conflict between two choristers?
So, honestly, I'm also learning, and I've got into many troubles. Trying to
Yeah.
mediate or trying to help out in that situation, and at the end of the day, two people fighting or two people having disagreements are now pointing fingers like, oh, you didn't address it the right way. So, it's really a very, very dicey situation. But most times, I think it's usually beyond us, and that's when we really need to ask God for wisdom and ask God for grace. But the most important thing for me is to listen to both parties.
Listen to
When
both parties.
people just want to be heard, they
People
just want someone who they want someone who understands them, and we have to stand in that gap and say, oh, person A, I hear you. Person B, I hear you. Now that we both or you both have laid down the situation, I think the leader as well should be very practical and not being too spiritual about the whole thing. I know we grew up, the LBC way where everything you have to quote the Bible, and sometimes I the word of God. I mean, the word of God is practical, but at the same time, when you look at it critically, it's in an ideal situation. Okay, when you look at 130, 133, that says how good and pleasant it is when people live, together in unity. For me, though, it's like a question. It doesn't happen all the time that people will live in unity and in harmony. So we have to be practical on what exactly is the root cause of this issue and see how we can break that gap and meet come at a meeting point. What I usually do sometimes is I don't immediately call both of them together. If two people are having issues, I don't call them together at the same time and say, oh, you say your own, you say your own. And this is why. When this person is telling his or her story, this person wants to refute what that person is saying, that no, it's not like that. And at the end of the day, you will not achieve what you want to achieve by pulling everybody together. So I would speak to the first person and hear what the person has to say. I will speak with the second person and hear what the person has to say. And with that, having that knowledge and understanding from both sides, then I can now call both of them together and say, oh, I hear you. I understand what's going on right now. In this situation, what would you think we could have done better? Or what would you think this other person would have done better? Now, they both have a story, and now they are providing recommendation for themselves. And at the end of the day, you realize that you as a leader, you might not even instruct or direct. Both of them are going to say, oh, but you should have done this and that. And in that process, the other person having the Spirit of God in them would say, okay, I apologize. I didn't see things the way you're saying. I thought this and this and this is what we should have done in this situation. So it's um it's a tough one. It's
Yeah,
not as easy as I'm saying it right now
it's not.
because because even after that conversation,
Mm.
sometimes um they might want to begin to be careful in relating with one another. They don't want to step on each other's toes, and that relationship will take time to build. At the end of the day, I've I mean, I've had situations where, and I know you guys might not think it happens, where choir members, women, you say women, actually wanted to box.
It happens. Dada.
Like it was like people were separating them. It was that bad. They were really
Wow.
angry and furious about the whole situation. Of course, they were suspended because that's
Hmm. My
that's our
goodness.
procedure, right? That's our process. They were suspended, but um, behind the scenes, that
Mm.
was part of the conversation I was having with both of them.
Mm.
So um, uh,
Yeah.
if people can just release themselves, have it in their minds that what, we're in this together to serve our God, and whatever comes with it, um, God will God will just help us out. God will lead us.
Yeah. Yes, you said something now because I am really eating your words as it's coming out because they are full of wisdom. Now, you said okay, those two people fighting. There is a laid down like a punishment that will be given to them, and that makes me to realize that okay, when you come into a choir, there are ethics, there are code of conduct, and all that. But most of the time, we
Absolutely.
don't really have conflict management systems in which a proper channel where choristers can feel free without the fear of being stigmatized or being worked against to hear their views, especially when it comes to conflicts of interest or values. There are some choristers that maybe where they were coming from, they are not used to a particular way and certain way, and when they come into the choir they see some things going on and it's like it grieves their hearts, as in their pain, like why is this one. Maybe let me give an instance. Maybe a chorister coming from a background in which everything is so sanctimonious and all that, and it gets to a choir and see that everything is bag and like no,
That's
be
good.
there's a conflict of interest already. So you know that that person is already at a defense already, and he will just be thinking to himself, what's going on here? What's going on? Control. I'm very confrontational when it comes to his belief. So what do you say about choirs establishing a a kind of a, will I
Structure.
say, conflict structure, that everyone will be able to like know that okay, this is it. When I have these issues, I can talk to this. I can do this, so that I will not be bottling up feelings and waiting for like those two ladies you said were boxing and all that. Before it ever got physical, I'm sure they must have been sizing each other up from a distance. This person is so lousy. I'm waiting for the
Mm.
time he will bring our wahala to me. I will show her. But if there are channels in which you can actually hear, we don't really have such. We don't
Yeah.
really have such
So
choirs. Mm.
so
Go on.
so so that example was really to the extreme, and we've never had anything like that afterwards. Um, but like you said, the structure is key. Our watchword, let me put it that way, is discipline and respect. You know, and each time when anybody is coming on board to the choir, we try as much as possible to, ring those
That's
words into their heads, because the choir is full of many professionals, doctors, engineers, IT, nurses, and each of them have you know, they are professionals in their own field. When they come into the choir, some of them might not be as strong musically, but that doesn't give you the reason to just snap at someone and say, "Oh, why are you singing like that? You know, you don't know how to sing." Or if you want to help, help, right? So we have a process in place, and I think one thing that we have that actually helps me. Earlier, I said we leaders, we have blind spots, right? So we have a team called the welfare team. And those we select into the welfare team, we try as much as possible to make sure that they're people who are not so out there, even though sometimes we have people who are out there, but people who pay attention to some of the things that are going on. Many of the things that I learn about or that I know about are through the welfare team. So people have built that confidence to, you know, walk up to the welfare team and say, "Oh, these are the challenges I'm facing. These are the issues I have. These are the things I feel are wrong." And because of the way people perceive church, usually it's tough for them to just walk up to a leader, except if they have a relationship with the leader and say, "You know what, talking about conflict of interest, this is how things used to be where I'm coming from. Everything's all over the place here. What's going on?" Some people don't have that relationship or that bond to be able to open up to the leader. So sometimes they will just open up to the welfare team there. "Well, I don't think things are going right, you know, blah, 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 blah." And when they tell me, I give them a call. You know, I ask them, "Okay, how do you think we can do this better?" And I feel that everything, it's all to make the choir better and make the work of God move forward. So that structure needs to be there. But the second thing really is for the leader to also pay attention to what's going on and to be able to listen to people, and not just listening, to put in place the right things that will help resolve those conflicts or those issues. I am working, you know, on some of these things I'm saying. I'm not there yet. I'm not perfect. There's still a whole a whole lot of things to be learned. But I think it's helping my choir, and I hope it will help your listeners as well.
Yes, we are really learning a lot from you. Now, we said something when you were talking, something dropped in me. I was like, okay, fine. There are some conflicts. There are some conflicts that are actually necessary to move the choir to another level. One thing that when we hear conflict, everybody's mind goes to the negative. Oh, it's, you know, it's synonymous to negative. But actually, there are some kind of conflicts that will need to be trashed out, managed properly, and there will be a shift in the choir to take the choir from this level to that level. Now, there's also the probability of not being able to discern which kind of conflict will do that kind of job, the healthy ones and the unhealthy ones. We know that there are unhealthy ones that have a devastating effect in the choir as well, if not properly managed. But we have some healthy ones. So is there a way as a leader, or, you know, as a music leader, to be able to know, okay, these are healthy conflicts that are good for my choir? For instance, conflict that will arise from, okay, we need to begin to increase our rehearsals from maybe a day to 2 days, and some people no, and before you know it, there's a luta in the choir because some people say no, and you see there's a lot of no, and you said the day, and some people not just come. Before you know that is another, is breeding already trouble already, and you know that these extra rehearsals are actually necessary to move the choir to a level of perfection to a great extent, you understand? And you know, how do we now be able to tell? Because there are tendencies of music directors not wanting to engage, trying to avoid too much, and you know, So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. How do we
Yeah.
tell?
So I won't be able to give a yes or no answer to that question because situations differ. But I think that we as leaders should be careful to
Mm,
think that we know it all. Um, there are some things that I get right, and there are some things that I get wrong. And one thing that I do that really helps me is that, and I think all leaders should do this, they should be able to identify their core pillars in the choir.
mm, mm,
Um, Once they identify their core pillars in the choir, and for example, the situation you mentioned on, oh, should we increase the rehearsal from 1 to 2 and all that? These are some of the things that we can bounce around um,
mm,
amongst those pillars and, ask, like, what do you think about this? When you hear an opinion, oh, what do you think about this? You hear, and then you juggle the opinions, you juggle what they think, and you make your final decision. I think that will help a lot. But where if a leader is not bouncing those ideas around, especially those ideas that concern or that impact choir members,
mm,
I think it's
mm,
going to be a disaster at the end of the day. I had one
mm, mm,
recently that I actually took the fall for it. I thought I
mm.
was doing the right thing for everybody, but actually that was it was the total it was the wrong calculation. So
Solutions.
I learned from that situation. It happened
Mm,
recently.
mm,
I
mm,
learned from that situation, and I think decisions moving forward should, be done that way.
mm,
However, the leader should also be careful because those pillars that I mentioned as well, some of them are strong-willed,
mm.
and they might
Yeah.
want to say, "Oh, but you asked me about this. Why didn't you take my idea?" And then you start another conflict.
No, that
So,
it, it is
yeah,
well. So I think what I could deduce from what you said, there are some influencers in choir. They
correct,
might not even
correct.
be best singers. They might not even be, but they have this grace to influence other people's decisions. I think it
Right.
reminds me of one of our men of God. I was reading one of his book. He was like when he got to a new church and he saw that he was trying to address the committee of the church, and I saw that there's this particular guy. Once he says something, he was always against what he was saying, and everybody follows him. So it was like, why is it that they are not even listening to him? So he had to go at the back to talk to the guy and like, come, I want to do this. So once the guy agrees with him, when they get there, it's always easy. So and he got things done. But most of the time, we see that instead of leaders to embrace such people, they see them as threats and see them as trouble and treat them like outcasts, and they don't maximize them. In fact, I used to tell people that it's a blessing to have such influencers among you. There are some people that are
Mhm,
just great. They know how to
mhm,
carry people along. They know how
mhm,
to
mhm.
they know how to talk to people. If you one could identify such people amongst you, it's a blessing for that leader. You just use them
Yeah.
to take, and you just you chill, and they will be the one even raking it that we must come for this rehearsal. If you don't come, you are just you understand what I mean.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
will.
That's
I hope
it
leaders. I
makes
hope
your
we are
work.
all. I hope leaders, music directors that are listening. I hope you are hearing this. These are wealth of experience, and I thank God that our guest is not mising words. He's being practical. He's not there yet. He has made mistakes. He has also learned, and it's really there. And there's nothing as good as there's nothing as good as
One,
learning than.
one thing that I want to mention is that what we do is spiritual. For you as a leader to have been placed in that position, God has a hand in it. And many leaders are not, maybe they have inferiority complex, or I don't know. So, and when it comes to, identifying people that are vocal, that are influencers, I don't think their grace impacts your grace in any way. Their grace doesn't diminish your grace in any way. But I feel that sometimes, or most times, God has placed those people on your team to help your work. Now, if we're pushing them back or we're fighting against them because they're influencers, and it seems like we're hurting ourselves, like stabbing yourself, by yourself. So we should have that level of humility to be able to. I reach out to my choir members, even when I minister, when I sing. I would ask them, what do you think? Yes, we're singing to God, we're ministering, but at the same time, you want to get some feedback as well. As the head of the department or music director, I still ask, some choir members, what you think about my ministration. So
I think
that
that
shows
I
you
think that's
the level
awesome.
to which we should, yeah.
So I think that's an awesome one. There are some leaders that are unpenetrable, as in because of the prestige of being the music director. Before you see them, they're hierarchy, so you don't see eyeballs. In fact, talking to them, like, music director, call me. I think once we can break this iceberg, it will be easy for people to hear their views. I see that most of the time when we brood this thing called conflict is when people have bottled up feelings. They are not able to express themselves. They are not able to speak out. They are being shut down. I know we from Africa, we have this mindset of, oh, this is the all in all. So when it's talking, it's what is here and here. You can't talk with power. You can't challenge. Or I mean, I'm not saying that challenge in a disrespectful way. You cannot say your views. You can't hear your views without being shut down. That no, you have to submit to leadership, even when leadership is tilting to the wrong direction. You understand? And I hope we are able to learn that there are key blessing to every leader. Those influencers, those people who can help you carry your work easier. I remember the certain issue that I had sometimes in my choir then, and it was a kind of conflict that was about to brew, and it was so unexpected that one of the people that helped us to reconcile together, myself and this particular person, was an influencer, so to say. But maybe in the high of leadership, she was like trouble, like, this is a troublemaker. But the giftings of such person was not really tapped, and it was not really so pleasant. So it brings me to the next question. And I want us to write our questions, please, so that I won't be the only one bombarding our man of God with questions. Please write your question. I know we have a lot of questions to write, because this is something that everybody has been looking forward to, because people keep asking me, oh, Shekina, my choir is this, my choir is that. When I'm going, I have to wear bulletproof, because it's like going to a war zone. I have to speak in tongues for 2 hours before I go for rehearsal, because I have to shield my heart, because there are some people that they are just sent from hell to make. So I like, is there a war front we are going to be rehearsed? Is there rehearsal? Why should we go for exam like we are going for warfare? And how do we minister and bless life when there's this conflict, in between us? So how do we now, I want to now flip the question. Now, when you have, when leadership has conflict with choir members, we've been talking about choristers and how, now as a choir member, from that perspective, when you notice that, okay, there is a conflict between yourself and your leader, how do you handle it? Yeah, vice versa, how do you handle it? Because
That happens.
how do we
That
handle
happens
it?
all the time. Oh my God! In fact, I have a lot of stories to tell, but so when I first became the head of department of the choir, oh, it was like I don't know. fire all over the place, you know, because I just felt like, oh, everything is supposed to be black and white, you know. If you come late for rehearsal or if you don't wear the right uniform, you have to sit down. Like that was the time where the choir would say, your blue is not blue, your blue is sky blue. Choir sit down.
God.
Yeah. And I
God,
I got
help
into a
us.
lot of trouble. Yeah, I got into a lot of trouble. Like, you know, imagine choir members not talking to you for like 6 months, and you both are coming to the same. And I'm wondering, okay, what exactly is going on in this process? You correct two people, one person makes a change immediately, the other person is fighting you. What is the problem? So eventually, I had to sit down with that person and say, hey, okay, cool. I know we have something going on that I don't understand. If I have offended you in any way, this was me as the HOD to one of my choir members. If I have offended you in any way possible, I'm sorry, I apologize. I sincerely apologize. And it was through that conversation that I started noticing a few things. Number one, I realized that there was a wrong notion, that she had a wrong notion about me. And she felt the correction of those days was as a result of something that she felt I knew about, that I had no clue about,
Yeah.
right? And probably maybe that's where communicating better comes into play. A leader or as choir members, I mean, whichever way, communication is very, very key. And she said a whole lot of things, and I listened to her. I listened to her. I did not interrupt her in any way. And when she finished talking, she was almost in tears. And I said, do you know that everything you just told me, I don't have a clue about it. I'm just hearing this from for the first time from you. And she
Wow.
was like, oh, really? She said, but I'm friends to someone, and of course, since I'm friend to that person, I'm sure she must have told you or he must have told you. I said, I don't have a clue. And
Wow.
then, you know, we resolved that. Imagine if at the time when that happened, both of us, we, you know, called ourselves and we had that conversation. That 6 months of not talking wouldn't even come up at all because we would have addressed it, right? So in that process, I learned a lot. I learned humility. As a leader, you can't. I know, you know, God has given you the vision. God has given you ideas, you know, on how things are supposed to be done and all that. Definitely, you don't want to break what the structure that God has given you or the ideas that God has given you. But at the same time, you also want to listen to people and hear them out. People are hurting. People are facing a whole lot of things. The situation, she felt embarrassed. She felt, you know, down. She felt really, really bad. And she felt I knew about the whole thing and I did not know about it. So these are some of the things that we face. We should be humble enough to be able to approach whoever it is. And just, I mean, it takes nothing to apologize for whatever is going on. But when you give listening ears to people, you realize that a whole lot of things are going to sort themselves out in the process than just saying, she's my junior, she's in the choir, why should I stoop so low to go and apologize or to go and beg, you know? So I mean, people, yeah, go ahead.
I think at the end of the day, maturity really matters. People in choir must have the emotional maturity, spiritual maturity to be able to handle this conflict between each other. Because without that maturity, it's always difficult for the place of I'm apologizing, even when the person is younger. It takes a lot of spiritual maturity to be able to do some things, to be able to, and we see so much immaturity in our choir units. We see so much immaturity. That's why people are not ready to compromise, to have a win-win. You can't always have your, you can't always have your way all the time. You cannot always be right all the time. As a leader, you have to, stoop to conquer, and even as choristers too, will have to. Then I also want you to speak about the role third parties plays in conflicts, because we have seen third party that have fueled the conflict and made it worse, more worse than you see some people and so-called egbons in the choir that are trying to solve issues between other choir members. Maybe let's settle it, and they had more fuel. And I still always say that any conflict that, so to say, has been settled and still has degenerated, it was never settled before. It was only suppressed and swept into under the carpet. So what will you say about the role of third party? Because everybody plays a third. For every conflict, there's always a third party, either fueling it or aiding it or helping it. What's the role of third party? Because we all play third parties at one point or the other. Be you a music director or a choir member, what should be our disposition to it?
So the role of a third party is really, really key. I believe that the third party should be many of the things I've been saying since morning. Third party should be the one to listen to those affected. Should not going on. In fact, the third party is not supposed to that any of them or either of the people in conflict. The third party is meant to listen, mediate, just get everybody onto the table of understanding. That should be the role of the third party. I personally, I feel that people should be mature enough to, if you have any issues with someone, to talk to the person, and then the person now comes in. I don't believe in that. I have a principle: whatever I would not say right in front of me, so I like to confront that situation. I rarely confront the situation, especially if I feel, well, I can, I think I can overlook this. But when I feel it's necessary to confront in that situation, I personally think there have been very, very few issues that I've had with family members that I've brought to my pastor in prayer. I have a pastor in church in prayer. I will let him know what's going on, but I'll try as much as possible to see how I can resolve it with that person by myself. So the role of a third party is good, but at the same time, if we as leaders find ourselves in conflict, I think it's usually better for us to meet with the person, address the person. We should be the third party in that situation, actually. Just listen to what the person has to say, and then we take it from there. But the key really is that maturity aspect. There are many people that are not that mature enough to hear you out or to mediate between two people.
Wow. The time is fast spent, and it's like we just started. It's just so loaded. In fact, we are bringing you back again, because we have not finished this discussion. We'll have a part 2 of this, because we really need to, there are so many things to really to understand about this thing, because as little or as seemingly unimportant this has been tagged, this is so key. You need to see a lot of choirs living and breathing in conflict that they have passed on to generations upon generations, to the extent that this child will not greet that parent because this parent is having issues. And when you look at it, all stemming, they are all in the same choir, and it's really not something to be really proud about. But finally, I just wanted to give what are recommendations recommendations you can give to choristers, because I believe that their choir leaders, their choir members, they're clueless. They don't really know, okay, what can we do to actually bring people closer, as in what can we do to actually reduce this conflict that will really make it easy for people to hear their views without being fear of they will take me out of context. And what are your recommendations?
I feel it's to put one, we as that atmosphere of openness, let us speak freely, let everyone speak. I don't shut people down. I rarely do that. Maybe if they're respectful, I can just shut them down. But I love to listen to people. I love to hear what they have to say. We need just that atmosphere of making people more comfortable to speak of their minds. And the major way we can do that when they speak, to make what they're saying look so they don't make them speak. And like I said earlier, it's about competition. The choir member says, "Oh, I think this and that and that." I say, "Well, yeah, I've heard you. I understand the premise. You can help them, mold the idea they're trying to get, mold what they're trying to do in a way that they themselves feel. That exactly is what I was trying to do. Make them feel welcome when they pick up. And the other thing as well is also communication as well.
Communication.
There was something I used to do. That maybe after the new year and all the celebration, we'll have a session where everybody sits together. So how can we move this one forward? What do you think? What are some
feedback system?